What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Jets franchise in Madden 18. And today we are here for the 8-week recap. We're actually technically in week 9 right now, but nothing has been simulated from this week. We are 8 weeks and games through the season because we have not had our bye week yet. We will have our bye week, I believe, 2 more games until the bye week, so we have a week 11 bye. And we got some stuff to go over because I wanted to make this a kind of around the league midway point. So this is how I plan on structuring these going forward. I am going to do a week 4, which is going to be the team stuff. I'll do a week 8, which will be around the league and team stuff. And then a week 12, or after game 12. It won't necessarily always be week 12. It's just going to be the game marks for these. And after game 12, I'm going to do just another team one. And then at the end of the season, we'll do a around the league episode because that'll be just the recap episode for the season. We'll probably actually do 2 then because I'll have to full recap on the season, but we'll decide that as we get to that point. So I'm recording this the same day as the video for week 8 was made, so if I still sound a little bit sick, I just woke up a couple hours ago. I have really bad allergies. I forgot to take my allergy medicine, so that's why that video sounds a little weird, so we're going to go with it. Alright, let's get started. I have a list of stuff I want to do, so we're going to start with our individual stats for the people on the team. And we're going to look at team stats stuff, obviously, this episode too. So, Josh McCown, after last week's 2 touchdown performances, even with the touchdowns and interceptions on the season, and he's been okay. 224 yards a game, 59% completion percentage, 8.3 yards per attempt, so he's throwing the ball down the field. 82 passer rating. I have heard conflicting things over the years about what an average passer rating is. Some people say 88, some people say 85. I'm going to go with like somewhere in the 80s is fine. It's pretty much going to be a look at all the other things, though. For me, it's usually completion percentage and yards per attempt. Interceptions can be a problem usually, but I think that those two are the most important things when judging a quarterback in Madden anyway. Obviously, there are other things that are better in real life, but 59% completion percentage, 8.3 yards per attempt, been sacked 16 times this season in 8 games. That's not the worst. Bryce Petty's been sacked an additional 7. I feel for some reason with Bryce Petty that he gets sacked more, but we'll talk about him in a second. I haven't been disappointed necessarily in Josh McCown. I think that we definitely could be doing better at the quarterback position, but at the same time, he's been good. Like, good, not great. 82 passer rating, like I said. Turnovers are a little bit of an issue. Bryce Petty, limited action, wasn't very good against the Dolphins. I feel that when Bryce Petty plays, our team plays worse, and I don't know why. I don't know if that's a built-in mechanic into the game, but other than that game against the Jaguars where he had that long touchdown pass, Bryce Petty, when he's in the game, receivers drop the ball more, the offensive line doesn't protect the same, running backs aren't as good. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like Bryce Petty gets a lot of bad luck. He's a 42% completion percentage. I think if you factored in the drops from other wide receivers, which is a great stat that Pro Football Focus provides. If you don't know about Pro Football Focus, go check them out. They have a lot of really good stats, but adjusted completion percentage for this guy, I think, would be like 60%. I think McCown's would be a little bit higher too, but not a whole lot different. I think that Bryce Petty and McCown would be very similar is the point I'm trying to make. Bryce Petty's been a lot more off target, though. Bryce Petty's been a lot more off target with his throws, though, as we saw in that game against the Dolphins where he threw 3 interceptions. So, I definitely say McCown's been a little bit better. Decision-making wise hasn't really been the best, but Bryce Petty has been all around not as good this season. 42%, like I said, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. 170 yards per game now. A couple of those games, actually all 3 of those games he did come in relief, so that number is a little bit lower than it could be. 64 passer rating and 7.4 yards per attempt, so he's like a whole yard per attempt lower than Josh McCown. So I'm interested to see where this actually yards per attempt goes when we have a good quarterback, because I just assumed that we would be a short passing game with a lot of like run after the catch stuff, but we've been pushing the ball down the field, and we'll talk about our receivers in a second. Now rushing is going to look a little weird because we only have about 2 weeks worth of stats for these guys, because they all weren't really playing before that. Elijah McGuire had a little bit before that. Elijah McGuire's stats are a little bit inflated by the game against the Falcons, and by a little bit I mean that's 95% of his workload. So we'll take a look at his season stats really quick. As you can see, he has 121 yards in that game. He had 10 for 13, I think that was last week's game. 2 for 11, 2 for 10, 3 for 4, 2 for 2, and then a couple other games he didn't even get a rushing attempt. I believe he has one catch on the season for 4 yards. He's been okay. He's definitely had his ups and downs, but for a guy that young, he's just a rookie. He was drafted, I think, like in the 4th round, who's not the most skilled, not the most developed. He's done pretty solid, I think. And I'm interested to see where he is going forward. Gallman, if you take that 68, I'm going to do the math really quick. I have my calculator right here. If you take the math, do the math real quick. So 102 minus his 68 or 61 yard run, excuse me. That's 10 or 12 carries for 41 yards, which is 3.4 yards per carry. So I can't be super impressed with him just because it's the thing of if you take out these guys' long runs, they're not nearly as impressive. But I still think Elijah McGuire's been okay overall on the season, and Gallman's just been really not impressive. Tariq Cohen, we're going to get more carries going forward. I want to give him like 3 or 4 per game, hopefully. These guys are going to be the lead guys, but I think Tariq Cohen could have a few carries a game and be a really effective back. Bryce Petty has a couple scrambles. Josh McCown has a couple scrambles. Not really a lot to talk about with the running game. It's not a focal point of the offense because usually we're down, and if we're not down, then our passing game's just usually better in general anyway. Darius Stewart has been one of the biggest surprises in the NFL this season, really. Overall, he's among the leaders in a lot of stats, but Robbie Anderson's been right there with him. So Darius Stewart, 46 for 688, 15 yards a catch, 7 touchdowns, 86 yards a game. Been very good so far. Not as good after the catch, but he does get open and make plays. This is better than I ever could have expected for Darius Stewart. I imagine he'd be like, even if we force-fed him, like 60 yards a game, maybe 70 yards a game. His hands are really good. He's decent speed, but his route running and his release aren't the greatest. And I haven't updated any of these things other than his awareness because, like I said before, with my progression, I'm doing awareness first. I'm getting it up to, I think, 80. I think it's 80 flat, and then I can do other traits after that. I have been cheating on that a little bit, but it's like 1 or 2 here and there for specific traits that are under 70 overall on certain players. So, like, with Jordan Leggett, I upped his route running because it's like a 62, and his release no, it's just route running. I up because it's like a 62. So I did stuff like that because they're so low that I can do like 1 or 2 here and there. Won't make a whole lot of difference. So that's been my progression plan so far. Darius Stewart, great season. Robbie Anderson, great season as well. He's averaging 74 yards per game. Now that is inflated by one big game that he had. I believe he had almost 200 receiving yards. He's already eclipsed what he did last year, but 2 games this year pretty much provided most of his stats. So as you can see, as you get toward the bottom, he's been solid in these games. He had 2 for 14 1 week, 4 for 46. He's been really, this is about what I expect for Robbie Anderson. 4 for 57, 4 for 77 types of games like this. 3 for 49 games like this, more than I expect. 5 for 119 and 5 for 175 and 2 touchdowns. That was the Browns game. I think this was, I don't actually remember what game this was. I should, but I don't. I've actually played ahead of where these games are currently, so I'm trying to just think back to what game this could have been, but I don't remember. But these games up here are where it's just where he had deep touchdowns. That's pretty much what makes the difference between a 4 for 77 or a 4 for 57 or a 5 for 60 game. 3 for 49. That's what makes the difference between a game like that and 5 for 119. 5 for 175 is long receptions like that. So we'll see what he does going forward. I don't expect him to be this productive going forward, though, so just keep that in mind. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, another person who I think has been a little bit inflated by certain games. He's had really good games. He's had really bad games. Like I said, his starting spot is not necessarily guaranteed going forward. As you can see, all of his best games are here, like 68, 4 for 68, 5 for 72, 4 for 85, 8 for 99 was probably his best game this year. And then you have these 3 games toward the bottom, 3 for 37, 2 for 32, 2 for 28. So he's either making a big impact or he's not doing anything. It's pretty much the gist of the Austin Seferian-Jenkins experience. And I've been meaning to get Jordan Leggett more playing time in the pass game. It just hasn't really worked out as much because he's been pretty solid. He's had some drops here and there, but he's 19 for 233 overall. And he's been another one where his games, when we give him opportunity, he has good performances. 5 for 80, 2 for 46, 5 for 44. But then he has games like this, 1 for 24, 3 for 22. He's just gotten not very consistent playing time. And I want to try to get him more playing time going forward because I think that he can be really good. He's already got pretty good receiving traits, and his hands are pretty developed. He's got possession catch, he's got rack, fight for yards, cover ball, all the traits that you look for out of a receiver. But his speed's not quite there. He needs a little bit of development still. His hands could use some work. They're already really good, but somebody I want to see develop going forward, get a little bit more opportunity. Marquez Wilson, been pretty solid. He was injured for a little bit, but he's averaging 17.7 yards per catch. Tariq Cohen, I want to get better receiving opportunities to, not just 2-yard dump-offs. But he's really shown the difference between having a good receiving back and what not having a good receiving back can provide you, because he's been making a little bit of difference in that department so far. Wayne Gum and Kevin White had the 50-yard performance, I think, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I think it was 2 weeks ago against somebody. And then Chad Hansen had 1 catch for 3 yards, and I'm pretty sure there was a penalty on it. Blocking-wise, Kelvin Beachum, been not very good. Brandon Shell hasn't been very good. Brian Winters surprisingly hasn't been the greatest, but James Carpenter hasn't allowed a sack, according to the game. I'm pretty sure he probably has, but offensive line's weak. There isn't a whole lot to say. Jamal Adams has taken over the team lead in tackles since Darren Lee got hurt, and he's just having a phenomenal season. 65 tackles, 3 interceptions, 10 tackles for a loss, and I believe he has 2 forced fumbles, I want to say. Maybe he might have just 1. He just has 1, but still, really good performance out of him so far. Darren Lee was our pretty much defensive leader other than him in the linebacking core. 57 tackles, 2 interceptions. Really good in pass coverage, surprisingly, despite having a very weak pass coverage rating. And I was really, really excited about the year he was having, because he's a former first-round pick, and he had a disappointing first season. So it was nice to see some development from him. Demario Davis has been solid. Leonard Williams has been really good. 35 tackles, already 10 tackles for a loss, 4.5 sacks. And I feel that he kind of has Brandon Graham syndrome, where he's often the guy who's getting a lot of pressure and being a really good defender, but he just hasn't had the sack totals to show for it. I feel like Muhammad Wilkerson's been good this year, but he hasn't been the greatest. He obviously has 9 sacks through 8 games on a really good pace. I don't feel like he'll keep that up. I doubt he'll finish the season with a sack a game, but it would be nice to see. But I think he'll finish probably around anywhere between 12 and 14, and I'd be really happy, because that would mean he had 5 sacks over the last 8 games, which is still really good. It's not as good, but it's still really good. He just hasn't been the best against the run, I don't think. I think Leonard Williams has definitely shown the difference between them in that department, but he's been better against the pass, I think, overall this season, just due to his ability to get sacks. And we'll see what kind of role he has going forward. He's the highest paid player on the team, but I don't feel like he's the most talented, not even close. So he's probably, at the very best, our 4th best defensive player. Marcus May obviously got hurt, but was having a really good season before that. Doesn't have an interception yet, and he has shown that he is not the greatest player in coverage, but he does have the forced fumble. He is a big hitter. He's getting he was racking up tackles for loss. Buster Screen, not been very good. Marcus Williams hasn't been very good. Alex Anzalone's been pretty good in the little bit he's played. I think this is only his 2nd start that we just saw. He doesn't have quite the tackle numbers, but he's been making plays all over the field, and he's been really good. Bruce Carter, another one, very like a reserve linebacker, backup linebacker, but he's played well when he's gotten the opportunity. Josh Martin's just burst onto the scene. 4.5 sacks in his last 2.5 or so games that he's played. It was really good. Montez Miles. Eddie Jackson was really good in the last game. He had that interception. He has another pass breakup, and he's just been really solid ever since he started. So we'll see the situation with him and Jamal Adams and Marcus May going forward. We'll see how that balances out. Justin Burris and then these guys are not really doing a whole lot. Jordan Jenkins had that game where he had a sack and a half, but then he got hurt, and I don't really think he's played since then. Mike Pennell hasn't played since we changed our scheme up, because we just haven't had the need for 3 inside guys. Eric Armstead had a sack in the first game that he played with us, but, well, actually, wasn't. Yeah, this was. No, he's played 2 games now, I'm pretty sure. But, we're going to try to trim this because it's going a little bit long, so we'll just do kicking really quick. Cat and 0, 76%. We could do better, but whatever for now. Lachlan Edwards, 39 yards in that. Not the greatest. Kick returning, Tariq Cohen already averaging 28 yards per return, but everybody was having a pretty solid year kick returning. Not great, but solid. And then Elijah McGuire was averaging 16 yards returning punts. That's just ridiculous. All right, so let's do the team league-wide stats. Now, this is before bye weeks, so some of these are going to be a little bit wonky right now, but we'll see where everybody is kind of standing. So, let's do offensive yards, I guess, sure. So, this is how the league kind of looks. Where are we? We're, looks like middle of the pack or so, maybe lower half of the middle of the pack. There's a lot of teams bunched up in this area, so it's kind of hard to tell. Passing-wise, we are top 10. That's not a surprise. I imagine rushing we're like bottom 5, though. So, that's not a surprise just because we've racked up so many yards through the air. And we're actually like, 8th. That's interesting. Rushing, we are the 3rd worst. I think that's just due to a lack of attempts, though, because a lot of games we've just been down, and if our running backs have bad games, we tend to avoid the run completely, which I think is a bad strategy going forward. But again, it's mostly just due to the fact that our running backs aren't the greatest. Points per game, we are 3rd to last. That's not a surprise. Our offense has struggled to really score. Passing touchdowns, we're like middle, maybe lower half of the middle of the pack on that. Rushing touchdowns, we are last, 1 less than the Lions, 2 less than the Bears, who are tied with the Giants for 3rd. First downs, we are, it looks like middle of the pack, lower half of the middle of the pack. Defensively, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th. I thought we were a little bit better because we've been holding people to not a whole lot of points, but I'll still take 9th. That's really good, and we are. We're like 11th against the pass. That's not a surprise. Our corners aren't the greatest. Our safeties are really good. Our linebackers are really good. But corners, if we had good corners, this would be like a top 5 number, I think. Rushing yards, looks like top 10, maybe a little bit outside. Again, I think that actually should be higher. I'm a little bit disappointed that that's as low as it is. But first, being like 8th in the league, surprisingly, not top 10 in either of the categories. So we're just balanced, and nobody else is really balanced. Points allowed, we are top 10, so we're not allowing teams to really score. Sacks, we're probably going to be top 2 or 3. Yeah, we just have so many good guys on the defensive line who have put in great performances this year. Very deep at those positions, and I think these sliders are a little bit off too. I've been trying to make adjustments, but just the patch screwed up the sliders really bad. The big patch that came out, and there hasn't been 100% of an adjustment toward where it should be yet. So this number should be about, I think, 5 or 6 lower, but also we have a very talented front, so it's not a surprise to see it that high. Buccaneers 2nd. Fumble recoveries, it says we have 0. We have more than that. Interceptions, where are we in terms of this number? So let's see. That's 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tied for 8th. I'll take that. We've been actually forcing turnovers. That's been a problem in past Madden games, is getting a good balanced interception number, but I'm very happy to see that. Conversions, I don't really care about this a whole lot. Red zone efficiency, we're probably really low. We're actually probably, no, we're not even close to last, actually. We're about middle. 71% offensive red zone points percentage. That's pretty good. Red zone defense, we're probably last. We do give up a lot of points in the red zone. However, we have held them to a 33% touchdown ratio. So, like, 33% of the time they're in the red zone. It says 32. I must be. Oh yeah, because this is 17. So actually, like, closer to like 37% of the time we're allowing touchdowns, which is really good because as you see, a lot of these other teams are allowing touchdowns as soon as people get into the red zone. We have by far the most red zone field goals allowed and by far the fewest red zone touchdowns allowed. So it's an 81% conversion percentage, but we've been really good at stopping opponents once they get into the red zone, which I'm really happy to see, a good red zone defense. I think that matters. I think having a good red zone defense almost matters more than just having a good defense in general. Like, a defense just stops them every time, or a defense that just forces a lot of turnovers. And then penalties, I imagine, will be somewhere in the middle, a little bit closer to the top. But the difference between, like, first and last is 200 yards. But yeah, this is a worse number than I like to see going forward. But we do have a lot of inexperienced players, so it's not a surprise. And then differential, I imagine, we're -5, which is 4th worst in the league. We do turn the ball over a lot. We've been getting takeaways, but just not where you want to be as a team when you have a negative turnover differential. Let's talk about re-signings really quickly, because that was something I was going to wait to talk about at week 4. They were just starting. There's been a few more now. We'll talk about all the re-signings at the end of the season, but I'll kind of highlight guys that we should talk about trades first. I'm going to kind of highlight guys that I was maybe disappointed to see get signed because I wanted to try to make a run at that position, and that was just a talented guy that got taken out of the pool, because there are positions I was looking at in free agency as opposed to the draft to try to improve this team a little bit quicker. Positions where maybe we needed multiple guys to improve. So Aaron Lynch was traded to the Cardinals, which is surprising because the 49ers just traded us Eric Armstead, so they're trading out of that well a little bit more still. They're Trying to get some more draft picks for their guys on the defensive line who just aren't playing as much. Jerron Brown was part of the trade along with a 5th and 6th round pick. Interesting. 3rd and 7th round pick for Keith Tandy. The Cowboys acquire him. Seahawks traded for Kyle Wilbur, a 2nd round pick in the next year's draft and 5th round pick this year. And then these are our trades. I don't think there was anything before ours. Sammy Coates was traded for a 6th round pick. It looks like he was traded for a 2nd round pick by the Cardinals. Interesting, in next year's draft. Travis Benjamin was traded to the Chiefs, so that's interesting because we're actually going to play the Chiefs later this season, so that'll be interesting. Traded for a 6th round pick, and Zach Fulton, it looks like, backup center. David Onyemata was traded for a 4th and 6th round pick, and then Kyle Emanuel was traded to the Bengals for a 4th and 6th round pick. So it's weird that these teams are giving up so many picks, but Aaron Colvin was traded to the Bills, so we'll see him actually this week because this week we're going to take on the Bills in Thursday Night Football, so that's interesting. 3rd round pick for Willie Young, we already saw that, and then this is back at the beginning of the season. Bruce Irvin, Richard Rodgers, so a lot of guys getting traded here early on. So let's look at the re-signings that have happened so far. We'll start from, can we not start from the bottom? All right, so let's go backwards. So any kicker you see on here who's good is like, that's a hit because I really wanted to look at kicker in this offseason. I don't think Chandler Catanzaro is the answer going forward. Anthony Hitchens, Caleb Sturgis, Aaron Lynch got a $5 million a year deal. Interesting. So he's joining a really talented front actually in Arizona, so it's not a surprise though. Keith Tandy got an extension. Matt Darr, punter, along with kicker, another position where anytime a punter gets taken, it's just one less guy that we can look at in the offseason. Tahir Whitehead was actually somebody I was really interested in looking at because I want another really good cover linebacker to go with Darren Lee going forward. Darren Lee is not really the best cover guy, but athletic, can keep up with guys. And we'll see if Anzalone can develop into that, but I just want more depth at linebacker. Because I think we still have a spot that we can address. Sheldon Richardson got an extension with the Redskins, so they keep a key piece. Hal Wilbur, Jordan Berry, Andre Howe, Brandon McManus. That was somebody I would probably be really interested in. Todd Davis, Chance Warmack. Not really a guy I was probably going to look at. Kwan Williams probably would have at least given a look as a nickel corner. Kerry Hyder, I'm going to try to adjust edge rusher this offseason, at least for depth purposes. But we traded for Eric Armstead and guys like that. And Josh Martin's been really good, so it's not necessarily a need right now, per se. Kyle Fuller got an extension. He would have fit perfectly with what I want to do, play a lot of zone and press guys. Alec Ogletree, Nickel Roby Coleman. So the Rams getting some guys retained. Avery Williamson, big deal for him. Stuck-up Novak. TJ Ward, I would have looked at actually as a guy who we could move to linebacker from safety. So that's a hit because I was actually interested in acquiring a guy like that who could play both if we needed. I know you can't do substitutions like that in Madden, but if we needed another safety, I could just change him to a safety. If we needed another linebacker, move him to a linebacker. A swing guy like that, and somebody who we could, use at least. Phil Dawson, Tyron Branch. Phil Dawson I wouldn't be as interested in. Chris Hairston, Terrence Mitchell, I was looking at him as a potential redemption story because we had him in the Chargers franchise and he got benched because he just wasn't really very good against. Well, he was decent against the pass. We led the league in pass defense, but we got Clinton Dix, so we drafted Andre McKee, so he became our third safety. And I wanted to see him redeem himself as the corner in this series. It would have just been funny, but corner is a position I plan to address in the draft anyway. So Keith Smith got a deal, DJ Fluker, Nevin Lawson, Tyler Eifert. That's interesting. That's a big deal, actually, considering his injury concerns. Connor Barwin, Jay Howard, Justin Britt. That was really a guy I was looking at. We need offensive linemen, and especially center. With the way that center functions in this year's Madden, it is the most important position on your offensive line because his awareness counts twice. It counts for your entire offensive line once, and then just for him once as well. So that's the most important position. So that's the one we're probably going to try to address first. So Justin Britt. A big hit right there for the free agent market. Marcel Reese. That's a guy I would have looked at as a fullback because he can block and receive. And if we want a fullback going forward, that's the kind of guy we're going to need to do both. Josh Klein, Shane Leckler, Greg Manx. Probably wasn't as interested in Manx as I would have been in Justin Britt just because his strength isn't very high. Gerald Hodges, very interesting to see him get a big deal. Obviously, Buffalo's very happy with the way they've seen him play. Same with Jordan Matthews. Those are two guys we're going to see again going forward. Trey Boston getting a deal. He's a guy I've had before in franchise, and I think Redskins 2 years ago. Adrian Claiborne got an extension. Shane Vereen, Patrick Omame, Russell Bodine, Ziggy Ansah, Tavon Wilson. That's interesting. Travis Swanson, that was actually a guy I was really looking at. Lane Taylor, too. These guys all got extensions. Lane Taylor and Travis Swanson probably would have been really high on my list of guys to target if they had hit free agency. So, good job by those teams not allowing them to hit the free agency. Coney Ely, real-life Jet. Would have been interesting to see him hit the free agent market. I would have considered signing him just for depth, if nothing else. Cam Meredith got an extension. That's nice. Prince Amukamara, Crockett Gilmore, Trent Murphy. Even though he's injured, got an extension. Mason Foster got a deal. Delvin Breaux got a deal. Surprising considering his injuries. Tremaine Brock got a 1-year extension for $8 million. That's probably going to hit the Seahawks a little hard. Cockrell got a deal. Roosevelt Nix. Sam Bradford. So it looks like the Vikings have made a quarterback decision. We'll see if that affects the free agent market this offseason. Marcus Gilchrist got a deal. Former Jet. Aaron Coleman got an extension after they traded for him. Matt Paradise, big deal for him. That is definitely a guy I would have looked into signing. He is one of the best centers in the league. So big deal right there. Spencer Ware, Ramick Wilson, Adam Vinatieri, Vontae Davis. That's a guy I probably would have at least looked at. Jack Muir, same thing. DeMarcus Lawrence, William Hayes. William Hayes got a 4-year deal. That's actually surprising. Cole Messi, Jarvis Landry got a contract. I'm surprised he didn't get paid. I'm surprised he got paid that little, honestly. Darren Sproles got an extra year on his deal. Matt Bryant, if he plays it, got another year. Carlos Hyde with an extension. Devon Kennard. Weston Richburg got a big deal. He could have switched teams. He should switch locker rooms. I would have been really happy with a guy like that. Telvin Smith, that's actually like the perfect kind of linebacker I would have wanted. Really good in coverage, but also pretty good against the run. Corey Linsley, a guy I would have looked at as a free agent. Devontae Adams, had him last year, so probably wouldn't have signed him. Malcolm Butler, probably like the best case scenario for a corner that would have been on the market. Janikowski, Maurice Alexander, Tremaine Johnson, LaMarcus Joyner, Terrence West. Terrell Pryor getting a deal after just 3 weeks in Washington. Interesting. Kenny Vaccaro, John Kuhn. Le'Veon Bell gets a big deal. 5 years, $65 million. We'll see if he's worth it. Martavis Bryant, Daquan Jones. DeAndre Hopkins gets a deal. Isaiah Crowell gets a deal. John Brown getting pretty good money for what he is. Jeremiah Tachu, Benny Logan, David Irving, Alshon Jeffrey. After just a couple weeks, they were really liked what they saw. Nigel Bradham, Dontari Poe, going to stay in Atlanta long term, it looks like. Justin Pugh, one of my favorites. He used to play at Syracuse, my favorite college. Allen Robinson, Vontaze Burfict, 6 years, $65 million. Matt Stafford getting a $66 million deal. Morgan Burnett, Andrew Norwell, Donald Penn, only 1 year. Interesting. Alden Smith, also 4-year deal. Sammy Watkins getting a 4-year deal after getting traded. Mike Wallace, Kirk Cousins getting the deal. Willie Snead, Thomas Rawls, Jimmy Graham, Stephen Tuitt, Eric Decker, Fedorowicz, and that's pretty much the end of the list. Richard Rodgers, though, on the Steelers. We might see the Steelers one of these years. It's funny because they used to be like in third place every year with the Jets, so they used to play each other all the time. So it's funny to see that that's not a thing now. So let's go over league-wide stats real quick, and then we'll do awards, and then we'll get out of here because I'm interested to see where people line up in awards. So we'll just look at the leaders in each category really quick. I know this has gone on pretty long, but I wanted to do the re-signings because they're really important for the landscape of this offseason. So Brady, leading league in passing. Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers having an MVP-type year. Ben Roethlisberger. Bortles having a really solid year. The touchdowns aren't there, and he doesn't have the greatest completion percentage, but the yards and the limiting of turnovers looks like are a pretty good year for Blake Bortles. Derek Carr throwing a lot of picks, it looks like. Probably want to clean that up. So is the same Jameis. Completion percentage is the highest completion percentage. Tom Brady, not a surprise. Drew Brees, second. Aaron Rodgers, third. Matt Ryan, Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota. All right. Oh, Sam Bradford, Cam Newton, Kirk Cousins, all have 66% or above. That's really good. That's actually like amazing for quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers leading the league in touchdowns. Carson Wentz up there, though, 19. Very nice. Very nice to see. These are all the guys that are over 15 on the year. Picks, let's see who's throwing the most. Jared Goff, not really showing a whole lot of promise in his second season. Mitch Trubisky, having a kind of poor rookie season. Deshaun Watson is at least above 1-1, so I guess that's better than nothing. Tyrod, 6 touchdowns, 10 picks. Very strange year out of him. Usually limits the turnovers. I think 10 interceptions would already be a career high for him. And then McCown is one of the few scratching double digits, but See a lot of guys on there. Yards per game, we'll see. Matt Ryan's actually, they must have had their bye week already. Matt Ryan's up there. Aaron Rodgers, Philip Rivers, all above 300. And then a bunch of guys over 275. Bortles being one of them. Interesting. Passer rating, I want to see who's actually high up here. Wow, Brady's going to have 115. That's incredible. 110 for Rodgers. No surprise, he's one of the best ever. Matt Ryan, Breeze, Carson Palmer actually is the best ever in terms of passer rating. Cam Newton looking to surpass his 2015 MVP season with an even higher passer rating. Let's look at yards per attempt. See what people are doing in terms of throwing the ball out on the field. Wow, Nathan Peterman's throwing a pass the line of scrimmage. That's really interesting. Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Marcus Mariota, Josh McCown, one of the top guys, Philip Rivers, Derek Carr, Bortles, Winston, Palmer, Cousins, Bradford, Tyrod, Aaron Rodgers, and Andy Dalton are all over 8. What's the longest pass play this season? 82 yards, probably a deep bomb to Martavis. Although Carson Wentz had one too, maybe it was a deep bomb to Torrey Smith. Cam Newton, Curtis Samuel maybe. Who's been sacked the most? I'm interested to see. 34 times for Jay Cutler. We were, I think, like 7 or 8 of those. I actually might have hit double digits in that game. Is there anything else I'm interested to see? No, not really. Rushing wise, wow, Le'Veon Bell is averaging 7 yards a carry. That is incredible. LaShawn McCoy, second in rushing. Jay Ajayi, Doug Martin, although he's under 4 yards, which is interesting. This is just a list of the top guys. Pretty much where you'd expect everybody. Maybe the yards per carry is probably down a little bit for everybody. Adrian Peterson bouncing back a little bit. Yards per carry, who's leading? I imagine it's Wayne Gallman. It's actually Le'Veon Bell, 7 yards. Who's the second closest, though? Marshawn's averaging 6. All right. Charles Sims, 5.4. McCoy, 5. Big year for Le'Veon Bell. He's probably might win the MVP, honestly. Probably end up still going to a quarterback, but this is a really good case. Melvin Gordon tied with him for touchdowns at 9. Dalvin Cook and Jalen Richard both have 8 apiece, so he's stealing all Marshawn Lynch's touchdowns. You got to stop doing that. Here's the guys with 7, and here's the guys with 6. Rushing per game, Le'Veon Bell over 100 yards. LaShawn McCoy, Marshawn. Must have got hurt then. That must have been what happened. C.J. Anderson, Todd Gurley, Rawls, Bernard, Adrian Peterson, Jay Ajayi, Doug Martin, Zeke. Not really having a great year, but still pretty good. Darren Sproles, Devontae, Freeman, Frank Gore, DeMarco Murray, Theo Riddick, and Carlos Hyde, all over 75 yards a game. So breakout year for Theo Riddick, not really known as a great rusher prior to this point. Who has the most fumbles? Jay Cutler with 5. Isaiah Crowell and Thomas Rawls and Jonathan Stewart and DeMarco Murray have 4, though. Broken tackles, Jonathan Stewart, Le'Veon Bell, Theo Riddick. Wow, that's actually a nice one. LaShawn McCoy. So that's interesting. Not really the big trucking guys that you normally expect. Yards after contact is Le'Veon Bell. Probably his longest play. No, Charles Sims, 90-yard run. J.J. in third was 76. I think was that against us or was that a different one? I don't remember. All right, we'll look at receiving really quick. Receptions are Darius Stewart, number 4, tied with Kobe Fleener, weirdly enough. Weird group of guys right here. This is the guys that have over 40 on the year. And I don't care about Jalen Strong. Julio Jones. Let's look at all the guys who are above like 600 or 500, I guess we'll go down to, because it's a pretty decent mark, I suppose. And who has the most per game? Because I'm interested to see, because Julio, yeah, he has that bye week. 119. That only went up after last week. So Darius Stewart is 5th after 2 guys on the Patriots. So still nice to see him crack the top 5, though. Actually pretty comfortably ahead of Allen Robinson right now, although a big game by Robinson or a bad game by Stewart could definitely close that gap. I think he leads the league in touchdowns. No, Rob Gronkowski passed him. He was tied with Jordy for the lead, though. What about per catch? I think Robbie Anderson still leads this category. Devontae Freeman has 22 yards a catch, though. That's interesting. Jonathan Stewart with 20. Yeah, Robbie Anderson at 18.7, though Sterling Shepard is pretty close, 17.7. A couple big plays could close that gap, definitely. What about average rack? I don't know, I said rack. Oh, so he's getting a lot of this after the catch. That's interesting. So he must just be turning like short plays into big gains. I'll try to find a wide receiver here. McCaffrey. I wish we could see more of him, but Jonathan Stewart's been really good this year. So Sterling Shepard's definitely number 1 in that category. Almost 10 yards after the catch on average. Giovanni Bernard. Not really a lot of wide receivers up here. It's mostly guys getting dump offs. Brian Quick, there you go. Let's look at who's going up the most sacks. Riley Rafe, Juwan James, Joe Staley, Austin Howard. These are all the guys that are in double digits at least. Tackling. Yeah, pretty much the list you would expect. Clayton Gaithers here. Oh, interesting. Jamal Adams. Close to the top. Interesting. Let's look at tackles for loss. 15 for Ndamukong Suh. Jamal Adams is tied for second with all these guys, so that's cool. It's actually cool to see him have that kind of success, and he's definitely like the highest in terms of like safety. Like, where's the next guy even at? I guess Darren Lee, a linebacker. So that's cool. That's nice to see him get in the backfield so much. What about sacks? Myles Garrett leading the league. Oh, Chris Wormley really high up. Wow, that's actually kind of a surprise. He's not the greatest pass rusher in terms of ratings, so that's nice to see. Brandon Graham finally converting those pressures into sacks. Been one of the best for a long time. He's finally showing the numbers, counting stats to back it up. This is just to go over the guys who have 5 or more. Interceptions. Lawrence Timmons has the most. He had 2 against us. Gary and Conley. Delvin Breaux, Casey Hayward. A lot of guys who have 3. I think Jamal Adams is one of them, yeah. So tied for second in tackles for loss and interceptions in the league. Like I said, this dude's having an amazing year for a rookie. So I'd love to see what he can do going forward. Pass deflections, Lawrence Timmons is actually up there too, so his interceptions aren't a fluke. A lot of linebackers with lots of pass deflections, which is cool. Catches allowed. Who's allowed the most catches? 38 for, well, out of real corners. All right, Demarius Randall with 27. What about forced fumbles? 3 for Jabril Peppers. Nice to see. DeForest Buckner. All right, some cool names to see up here. Not necessarily some names you'd expect. What about defensive touchdowns? Anybody have more than just 1? Nope. A lot of guys have 1 though. Kicking. Let's see what people are doing in terms of kicking. Wow, Justin Tucker's missed 5 extra points. Wow, Cody Parkey has missed 11 extra points, 42%. That is insane. He's been perfect on field goals, though. Who's been the worst? Cairo Santos. He just got an extension, too. That's the funniest thing. So, wow, we actually have had a pretty decent kicking game, surprisingly. A lot of guys missing a lot of kicks. So that's very curious to see. What's the longest that's been hit this year? 58 by Matt Bryant. I think that was against us. If not, then that one was really long. What about worst extra point? Nick Folk. Man, Nick Folk not having a great year. Kai Forbath. A lot of missed extra points this year. It's a really wonky year. Blocked. Some guys there. What about, is that just extra points blocked? I want field goals blocked, though. Is that a thing? Where would that be, actually? It'd probably be toward the, yeah, here we go. I missed it completely. Was that the most blocked? Adam Vinatieri's had 2 blocked. Interesting. Alright, punting. Let's look at net yards. I want to see where, wow, so Lachlan Edwards is actually not last. I'm kind of surprised to see that. Johnny Hecker's first. Yeah, these names aren't really a surprise. I guess actually Jordan Berry's a little bit of a surprise, but he's not that bad, I guess, honestly. So has anybody had 2 kick return touchdowns yet? Nope, just a bunch of guys who have 1. Tyler Lockett being one of them. Punt returning. Anybody have a touchdown yet? Patrick Peterson, Odell Beckham, and Golden Tate. Alright, let's look at awards since this video is going to be like 40 minutes long already anyway. We'll just take a quick look at awards and see where everybody kind of stands. So Brady, Rodgers, Derek Carr, Cam Newton, interesting. Interesting, Le'Veon Bell's 8th. That's very curious. Coach of the Year, Jack Del Rio. Yeah, 7-1 Raiders. I'm not surprised. Bill O'Brien getting some buzz. Dirk Cutter. Bill Belichick. Doug Peterson. Jason Garrett. Anthony Lynn up there, too. Chargers 5-3. Let's look at NFC first, actually, because we don't really have familiarity with that conference. So, Rodgers and 3-4 Packers might win Offensive Player of the Year. Cam Newton, Matt Ryan. A lot of quarterbacks on here. Devontae Freeman making a run at the title, though. Defensive Player of the Year, Bobby Wagner. Brandon Graham, Luke Kuechly, Gerald McCoy. Alright, interesting list of people. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Dalvin Cook. That's not a surprise. Chris Godwin, though, looks like having a pretty solid year. Man, Mitch Trubisky. How bad do you have to be to get yourself out of the running for this award? Defensive Rookie of the Year, Tack McKinley, Reuben Foster, Chidobe Awuzie, Ahkello Witherspoon, Sidney Jones. That's probably shouldn't be playing, but no, whatever. Solomon Thomas, Jonathan Allen, Marshawn Lattimore, Monte Nicholson. Have not heard of him. And Corn Elder. Interesting. Best quarterback, Rodgers. He is the best quarterback, so that is correct. That's the list. Running back, Devontae Freeman. Receiver, Julio. So just Falcons running away with these awards. Zach Martin, best offensive lineman. Trent Williams, Frederick, Tyron Smith, Alex Mack, Brandon Brooks, Jason Peters, Lane Judge. So the Eagles and Cowboys are really well represented in this list. Best defensive lineman, you got Aaron Donald and Ethan Westbrook. So Rams showing out here. Buccaneers as well. You got McCoy and Chris Baker. So that's nice to see. And Mike Daniels getting some buzz too. Seahawks, best linebacker. Bears showing out though here too. I feel like they should try to kind of distinguish who's an edge rusher or not in this game a little bit better. Defensive back, you got Tremaine Brock, Ronald Darby, James Bradbury, Delvin Breaux. Well, interesting list of guys. Cardinals, Seahawks well represented. Eagles. I thought they had a couple guys, but I guess they don't. Alright, very nice to see. Did I look at everything? I don't think I looked at best kicker. Yeah, I was going to say. Mason Crosby, Dan Carpenter, Caleb Sturgis. That would be nice to see Dan Carpenter win it just because the Giants are not having the best go of things. Stephen Hauschka is the best kicker in the NFL, or in the AFC, just so you know. Tom Brady, Le'Veon Bell, Marcus Mariota, Derek Carr. All these guys are running for Offensive Player of the Year. Interesting. Defensive Player of the Year, C.J. Mosley, Justin Houston, Dante Hightower, Myles Garrett. I can't believe that Jamal Adams isn't on this list, though. You saw the stats from him earlier, but I don't know, maybe just not getting the consideration. David Harris, former Jet, really bouncing back. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I can't believe Ardarius Stewart's not number one on this list. Come on. He's having an elite year. These guys have been good, but quarterbacks, I guess, just always win. Corey Davis right there, too. I don't know why Jay Cutler's on this list. It's just some weird Madden glitch, I imagine. David Njoku, Carlos Henderson, Mike Williams, Dante Foreman. And then the defensive side of the ball. You know, I'm not surprised to see Jamal Adams so far down this list with the year that Chris Wormley and Myles Garrett have had just because sacks. But, come on. Jamal Adams is better than Jabril Peppers. Got some guys here. Darrell Pasham, Gary and Conley Tredae, Tankersley. We saw how good he is in person. Quincy Wilson, a really good corner for the Colts. And Tre'Davious White for the Bills. Brady, Mariota, Carr, Phillip Rivers, Bortles, all those guys. How is Deshaun Watson the 7th best quarterback in the AFC? The AFC is bad. Man, is the AFC bad. Le'Veon Bell. I don't even think there should be a number 2. I just think the list should end at Le'Veon Bell. Weird list. Very strange list for these guys. Best wide receiver. Ardarius Stewart might win best wide receiver and not win player of the year. I can't believe he's ahead of Keenan Allen, though. A rookie of the year. I can't believe that he's ahead of Keenan Allen and Julian Edelman, who have both been better than him, though. It must be the touchdowns. We'll see if he can keep up this pace throughout the year. Tyrell Williams on this list. Very nice to see. Offensive lineman Yonda. Raiders, Steelers. You know, guys you would expect normally. Marcus Cannon's on there, though. Best defensive lineman, Garrett, Chris Wormley, J.J. Watt. Wow, 2 people had a J.J. Watt's interesting. Well, the Ravens are 5-3, though. That's actually kind of a surprise. Muhammad Wilkerson, wow, up here for best DL. Must be those sacks. I definitely think it must be those sacks. Best linebacker, you got Justin Houston, Jabal Sheard. Edge rushers, Lawrence Timmons showing up here, though. Mosley, James Harrison, Coney Ely, Brandon Marshall, David Harrison, Vincent Ray, Dante Hightower. Chris Harris Jr. is your best defensive back. Gary and Conley up there. Jamal Adams. I would love to see Jamal Adams make a run at this, though. This would be cool, just because defensive backs aren't separated, so I want to see if a safety can manage to win it. We'll have to see what kind of year he has, though, to finish things out. And that's going to do it for this Week 8 recap. This ran about 45 minutes, which I didn't expect, but there was a lot to go over. So, yeah, 8 more weeks to go, 8 more games to go, and then we'll be on to the offseason. So we'll see how the Jets close the season out. Hasn't been the greatest so far, 3-game losing streak, but a very winnable game against the Bills on Thursday night coming up. So it'll be the color rush you have to look forward to. That's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more Jets franchise in Madden 18.